The National Prosecuting Authority has failed to successfully prosecute in their first state capture trial. The trial ended in a discharge for the defendants after the judge ruled that the state had failed to produce enough evidence in the Gupta-linked New Lane Investments alleged money laundering case. Joining us is Executive Secretary of the Council for the Advancement of the South African Constitution, Lawson Naidoo, for what this means for the NPA. Lawson, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. The judge presiding over this case, when reading out the judgment, said it is an inescapable fact that almost 25 million rand of taxpayers' money left the fiscus. The questions that remain are why and who facilitated this. Regrettably, in this case, the institutions responsible to answer those questions have failed. This tells us what for the very first state capture trial?
Good afternoon and thank you. It's of course deeply concerning and disappointing that the case has ended in the manner that it did, with the discharge of all of the accused without having to provide any evidence in defense, because the court ruled that there was no case to answer effectively. So this is, as I say, deeply disappointing, and it really points to a question as to why the case was enrolled in the first place if there wasn't sufficient evidence available to be able to secure a conviction. And being the very first state capture case following the Zondo Commission reports, there was great hopes pinned on it. But having said that, I don't think we should lose all hope and be in despair that nothing much will come of the other cases that have been enrolled. This, as you will recall, was a case that was enrolled in the middle of 2021, in the early days of the investigating directorate having been established in the NPA. And we know that a range of other cases were enrolled during the course of the latter part of last year. And certainly the hope has got to be that those cases will be better prepared, better evidence presented, and witnesses lined up to corroborate that evidence that does exist and which we've seen and heard from the Zondo Commission. So I think there is some introspection to be done by the NPA. But again, I think we've also seen, a slow process of rehabilitation of the NPA, the skills level among prosecutors being enhanced, additional capacity being brought on, as well as some innovative partnerships with private sector entities, particularly with regards to the forensic capability of the NPA and the investigating directorate itself.
It's not just the NPA. The police also caught the attention of the judge, and she mentioned that attempts to properly secure documents relevant to the New Lane trial were characterized as a comedy of errors. The failed attempts to properly secure those documents were characterized as a comedy of errors. And so whether you are talking about state capture or you are talking about El Rato on the ground, you say not to lose hope. But what then should the layperson see or read into this?
Well, I think, we've seen again from the Zondo Commission the way that the law enforcement agencies across the board were hollowed out, including the SAPs, the Hawks, as well as the National Prosecuting Authority itself. And there's clearly a significant amount of work that needs to be done to fix those key institutions if we are going to win not just the battle against state capture and corruption, but more generally, as you rightly point out, the fight against crime itself. So the capacity of the SAPs has to be improved. But I think it also speaks to the issue that has been raised by both the President and the Minister of Justice, that the investigating directorate within the NPA will be given a permanent status, that it will be given through legislation proper powers of search, seize and arrest, so that the cases that are brought by the investigating directorate are properly managed by them. I think one of the lessons to be learned from the Nolani case is the fact that the ID had to rely on the SAPs to collate the evidence for them. And this is where a part of the case clearly fell apart.
Let's maybe stay with that theme of lessons learned, because the judge also used the African proverb, haste and hurry can only bear children with many regrets along the way. And so, in retrospect, some of the other lessons. Lawson, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So I'm just asking, in terms of lesson, you outlined but one lesson that can be learned on the part of the state on this. Is there anything else you can identify?
Well, I think, a better preparation of cases, not being hasty, as the proverb used by the judge at the end of her judgment highlighted, that, the meticulous preparation of cases is critical in any criminal prosecution, and much more so in these complex cases of state capture, which involved, issues of fraud, corruption, money laundering, and the like. And I think this is again where the issue of the capacity of the NPA comes into question. And the NPA has spoken, and government has spoken about the need for the NPA to enter into these collaborative partnerships with the private sector. Many legal firms, accounting firms, and the like are offering to provide that assistance to the NPA to be able to conduct these proper forensic investigations and produce the documentary evidence that is required in order to ensure successful prosecutions. The other key issue, I think, is the issue of the so-called Gupta Leaks emails, which were ruled to be inadmissible in this case, and that clearly hampered the NPA's prospects of success, because without the Gupta Leaks emails being admitted to the evidence, the case itself ended up being very flimsy, reliant on one witness who was deemed to be whose evidence was deemed not to be credible by the judge, and therefore those are the sorts of issues that need to be resolved, and certainly the NPA needs to find a strategy and a mechanism of corroborating the Gupta Leaks emails, so that in future cases they can be admitted as evidence and strengthen the NPA's case and the prospects of successful convictions.
Executive Secretary of the Council for the Advancement of the South African Constitution, Lawson Naidoo. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon.